Welcome back to Art 371. Today we're going to be exploring a new projection mapping software made for Apple and Macintosh computers known as Millumin. They're on the third version of Millumin. I'm on their website here at millumin.com. Really amazing live audio-visual performance-based mapping software for theater, dance, video mapping, interactive installations, you name it. It can cover a lot of bases and has a really familiar interface, kind of like Adobe interfaces for folks that are familiar with After Effects and Premiere and all of that fun stuff. So you can go to the website. First thing you're going to want to do is either download the 30-day free trial, or you might want to rent it. There's a great option right now for $39. You can rent it through November 27th as part of this COVID special. Or as a student, you can click on this little link, the educational form, and then if you go down to I am a student, they actually have for $49 US a 6-month license, which is just awesome deal. Now, if you want to buy it permanently as a student, I do believe there's a lifetime license. That's for the university. I know the teacher has a 6-month as well. I know there is a cheaper version for education that you can buy, and it'll allow you to authorize up to 2 machines at the same time. So let me know if you're interested in that. But once you download it, it comes down as a really easy install. It's just one of those ones you drag into your applications folder. The logo is going to look like, the icon for it's going to look like this blue one here. On my computer, it's actually white because I have installed the beta version, which has a few more features in it. But right off the bat, we can go ahead and open it up. And before you open it up, just make sure your system preferences, that your display is set up correctly, right? So you go to displays, make sure you have mirroring unchecked so that you have 2 displays you're working with. Mine's already connected to an HDMI cable, and I have it set up as a second display there on the screen. As I click on it, you can see the red border around it. So just make sure you're set up as that dual display and not mirroring, okay? All right, let's close that. So once we do that, we're going to go ahead and open up. I have this Millumin test file, so I'm going to go ahead and open that. And when I do this, my display is going to go black because Millumin automatically detects that it's connected to something, and it's going to send that out and make it black. If it doesn't, go to the top of your screen here where you see the output button and click on that. And here you're going to have options. If I was connected more than one projector, we'd see it here, or other types of displays. But mine is auto-detecting on projector, 1920 by 1080. That's my resolution. So we're pretty good to go. Now, if I want, I can turn on this really handy thing called a test card. And the test card allows me to kind of see how things are looking in my particular space. And I can actually manipulate this test card without any footage. If I click this little gear icon, a little window pops up, and I could kind of correct for any keystoning issues, like if because I'm not projecting perfectly on a flat wall here. I'm actually projecting on a wall and on kind of in 2 different things, on a wall and also a little bit on the floor and in front. So I can kind of correct this to make it look like it's at least straight up and down on the wall, as you can see that, and get it centered up on my object. That's pretty good. So you can click on each of these corners and kind of line it all up so it looks really clean. And you click off of that, and then you can turn the display card off. I can also toggle full screen or not. I can turn full screen off or back on again. It's up to you whether you want to be full screen or not. I tend to do all my mapping with full screen on. All right, I'm going to hit OK. You can also go to output here and toggle full screen. It's Command F. So if at any point I hit Command F, I go off full screen. If I hit Command F, I'm back to full screen again. All right, so on the left here, I wish it was open by default, but you'll see there's a little bar with a little gray arrow right here. Click that, and this shows you your library of footage. I went ahead and dragged in a few clips into this file, and then I also dragged in a folder worth of content. I'll show you how I did that. If I go, I have a hard drive open right now, and I've got some footage here. So say I just want to drag in a clip, or this School of Fish clip. I can just drag it right in. You see it highlights white, and boom. I can also, as I said, drag in a whole folder. Whoops, sorry, I clicked on the edge of the software and it expanded there, so I'm going to move that over. I can also drag in a whole folder. So again, live video, and let's go down to light patterns. Actually, let's do the new animated light. That's a good one. and I can drag this in, and then I get the whole folder of new animated light. Just make sure to save as you go to make sure you have you don't crash or anything like that. I mentioned earlier I have the beta version going. That's why I get this little like beta icon up here. If you want to turn your beta version on, you can go to Millumin and Preferences. And if you go, I believe, to Update, there will be, mine's kind of grayed out right now, but this is where it says subscribe to beta versions. If you click that on and then check for updates, it will say, hey, there's a new beta version. Do you want to download it and replace the old one? You can do that and update. Also, if you did purchase an activation, this is where you're going to go ahead and put in that activation code. There's this little icon here that says activation, and this is where you will activate now or activate online. You'll hit the button, you'll input your serial number, and you'll be good to go. As you can see, I have 1 computer out of 2 activated on this license right now. All right. There's lots more in here. We'll come to this later on. There's some add-ons you can add, things like that as we move forward. But for right now, I think this is good to go. All right, so a couple things in Millumin. This is our main viewer here right now. So this is kind of the main screen. I can zoom in and out of it. It's based on the resolution of the projector that I'm connected on. I can also hit this button to kind of like frame it within my picture. I can use this to zoom in and out and this to kind of pan around. But I can also just click and drag or use my scroll and then hit this to kind of zoom it back out again. Down here at the bottom, I have 2 options in Millumin. You have kind of this live palette option, which I'll show you, and then there's a timeline option. So if I want to use this live palette, the situation, it's called the dashboard, is really for sort of like live scenarios where you're constantly kind of clicking between different columns of video that you're working with. So say I want to put this school of fish video in. If I put this and drag it down to column 1, turn off my audio on that, you'll notice it's a little smaller than the 1920 by 1080. That's because if I click this little info button here, I can actually read up about it. I can see this video is 1280 by 720, 20 seconds long, 30 frames per second. I can drag that out and make that clip a little bit bigger. This little info and preview is really nice. You can even play the clip a little bit up there if you want to. So anyway, it's not quite the size that I want, but that's okay. You can see it's on my screen right now. And then I can come over to my viewport here and I can drag it down and scroll it and move it around. And I can shrink it, and you can see if I go to the edge, I can actually rotate it. Obviously, I can move it, I can scale it, etc., etc. So it's not really like full mapping yet, but it allows me to make multiple clips if I want to, right? So I could have that clip, and then I could add another layer. If I come down to this plus button in the bottom left corner, I'll add another layer, and then I'll bring in this next video clip. And I can drag that over and have that next to it on the wall. So now you can see I have a second clip going on the wall. And I can keep doing this. I'll add 2 more layers. I'll bring in my eyeball. And I can scale that down. And I can bring in, let's go with this hypnotic bodies for the 4th one. Cool. And that's great. I have 4 videos all stacked up, ready to go, that I can start playing with, right? And I have them on the wall, and they're being projected. Now, the reason there are columns, this is like column 1 and column 2, is because I could put different clips in each column. Like, you know, I could come up to Gobbler's Knob here and grab a couple of these clips. And if I hit play on that, it'll switch to those clips. Now these ones are much larger, so I got to shrink them down here. Some of these clips are full 1080. Some of them are actually, I think, 4K. But it allows you to kind of like prep one column of footage while you're working on the other. And so I can get that one going, and then I can stack this one and then switch between them, which is really nice. There's even, if I click this little edit boards button down here, I can even do some fun things, like I can add transitions. I can do all sorts of things to it, which is really cool. So I could say put in a smooth transition and make it last 3 seconds. And so now I have that playing, and then I click on that one, and you can see my other one kind of fades in on top of it, which is really nice. And if I go to this one where it says none, and I say give this a 5-second smooth transition, and then click back off of it, I can hit play on that one and then slowly fade from one to the other, which is really cool. So, lots of really neat options. Now, the one thing you have to see is that these are all on their own layers. The layer is actually what controls the transform. So, because I scaled these guys down on the same layer, these guys got shrunk as well. So you'll see if I blow that one up in size, and then I come back, see how the grass was affected on the next one. So this is where it's important to either put them all on their own layers or just make sure all your footage is of the same resolution so you don't have those kind of issues. So now I scaled that back, and you'll see this little guy is small again. So that, like I said, any transforms you do, transform the layer. They don't transform the clip. So keep that in mind. That's a really important feature in Millumin. Any effects you apply, transformations, everything like that affects the layer. You know, I could have easily just added 4 more clips and moved them up, so I could say 3, 4, and then I could just move these. Move that one up to there, and that one up to there. And scroll down a little bit. There we go. And last one, this one here. And now each of these clips, I could go back and I could say, cool, now let's scale these down and make them fit where they need to be. And it won't affect the other layer, the other layers in that first column. So as I go back, scale these back up again. And now you'll notice when I go back and forth between the 2 layers, everything stays where it needs to be because it's on its own layer. So this is to keep in mind. Now the other side of the dashboard, timeline. A lot of people that are more like film oriented and work in that kind of linear nature, if you click on this, now you have very much a standard timeline like you would have in After Effects or Premiere. You can still do multiple layers, but I can stack these all out. And the effects that I do affect the whole layer, so keep that in mind. So now I can stack out this clip, I can have this come on, and then just after that, I could have this clip come in. Like I said, I like to have clips on their own layers, unless they're all the same resolution, and then you can do what you want. You can just drag out a clip and make it repeat multiple times. That one was only like 10 seconds long, so I made it longer. And yeah, so I can do a regular timeline here, and then hit spacebar and watch it kind of play through. And it'll go from one clip to the next, to the next. And there's actually like a whole keyframing layer you can add to these as well. Which is really cool. If I click that keyframe button, then you get these pluses, and I can add in blend modes, opacity, position. I can animate layers, do all sorts of fun stuff, which we'll get to here in the near future. So really powerful, fun stuff. There's even curves if you want to bring in, which allow you to animate at a much higher level. All sorts of fun stuff like that. So, you know, we'll get to that though. I don't want to add too much to your plate. And you can have multiple timelines, and you can do nested timelines. You can think of them as like compositions in After Effects or Premiere. But let's go back to the columns for a little bit. We'll stick on dashboards for today, because this only takes us so far, right? So what if I want to take these squares and actually map them to this 3-dimensional stack of boxes that I have in front of you right now on the camera? Well, up here at the top, you'll notice there's a couple of modes. So there is what we're in right now, which is just the normal tool to manipulate content. Then there's an actual tool to map things. So if I click on this, you'll notice my corners changed from just standard little boxes to these round boxes, right? So maybe I bring this over here, and if I switch back to the original, I'm going to scale this down a little bit so it fits kind of right over one side of the box. And yeah, let's get it down right around there. And then I'm going to go back to this mode and watch what happens now. Now I can actually skew and map this to fit the 3-dimensional surface here that I'm working with, right? So let's bring this in. Let's bring this in. Now I can have some real fun, and I kind of go back and forth between these 2 modes. I'm going to overlap this one on this side of the box. Maybe make it a little bit bigger. Rotate it a little bit. That's good. And then if I go to mapping, now you will notice it is kind of stretching and squashing a little bit. So if you don't want that, I'm going to show you another mode that's called masking. And this is a big difference between like Kantan Mapper and in Touch Designer and Millumin. You really only have this like warping mode in Kantan Mapper, where this allows me to mask it as well, which you'll see the difference here in a second. So I've mapped that side of it. Let's try something else on the right side. So if I grab this clip and I bring it over to the other side of the box, and I'll scale it down. Let's get it right around there somewhere. Maybe I don't want to stretch it, but I still want it to fit inside that box, right? Well, if I go to the third choice up here in the top menu, this is the mask option, and I come over here to the right side and I scroll down, you'll see there's a mask section. And I can go ahead and click in and put in a square mask. And you'll see it just made a black box in the middle of it. By default, it's kind of just makes a black area where the projection is not. But if I hit invert, the video only shows up inside the box. So now, and you'll see it's not stretching it, it's just revealing part of it and masking away the rest of it. So it's very much like masks inside of After Effects in that way. So you can see the video is still staying the same size, it's not being stretched, but we're masking around it. So it's a really nice method. And there's not just square masks, there's freestyle masks, there's circle masks, there's triangle masks. So let's go back here, I'll move this one in, and I'm going to scale it down. Pretty good, it's a little small. Let me make that just a hair bigger. There we go. And then I'll go ahead and I'll go to mask mode, which is the third one in on the top. And this time I'll add a triangle mask. And I'll move that over. And then I'll hit this invert button, and there you go. Now I have a triangle, but I can still decide like kind of how I want it to be skewed so it looks like it's correct to the eye based on what we're seeing right now. Really, really fun. The third one I'll do is the round one up at the top. I'll go ahead and add another video clip. Let's add one more layer. Remember, the masks affect the whole layer again, not just the clip. So let's do one more. Let's see, my animated light up here. Actually, I'll do one of these shadow figures. Let's do that. Cool. There we go. There's the big shadow. I have to go back to the first item at the top, scroll this guy down, we'll bring it up to the top and scale it a little bit more. It's getting there. Let's make it just a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to go to mask mode, scroll down on the right, little plus button here and add a circle mask. And then I can scale this with this little bar, make the mask a little bit bigger, and then invert it again with the invert button. And if I click right in the middle of it, you can see I can move it around a little bit too. So now I have that dancer moving around inside the circle. If I want to scale it up, I can scale it up. Or a cool feature is you can do a feather, which softens the edges. You can see if I do that, it kind of softens the edges around, which is really nice on that sphere particularly. So, a lot of really nice options here. I could also fade that layer, the mask back if I don't like it. If I scroll up to the top, I could play with the opacity of the whole layer. I could make it like more faded back or more bright. Again, I could kind of scale the whole thing if I wanted to, or make it smaller there, and that affects the mask and the video layer inside. I could rotate it if I want to, one way or the other. So just so many options on what you can do. And this is really just beginning to scratch the surface. This is just a quick introduction to get you started in how you can work with the key ones up here are this positioning and scaling versus mapping versus masking. And then down here between the dashboard and the timeline. And the timeline is the same way. I could draw in a mask here if I want to. Draw in a custom mask because I'm in map mode. And then come down to masks here. Click on it. and invert it, and then it's only going to show up inside of that mask. Cool little feature, if I hold down Option or Alt on a and I click on the same points, they turn into little Bezier curves, which is really nice. And then I can kind of control the handles and get some really like complex mappings going as well. So you don't always have to just do the ones here. You can go ahead and do an empty mask and draw right into it like I just did. You can even import SVGs from Illustrator to turn into masks, which is a really cool feature. So I don't want to get too far ahead of us. We'll, in the next lesson, look at some more advanced features. But pretty fun stuff that you can work with here. Millumin, like I said, is a really powerful piece of software. We just begin to scratch the surface on it. Look at all these different features. You could still even map that with a mask on, which is kind of fun. So many different ways to manipulate the imagery and play with it in three-dimensional, an illusionary three-dimensional space when really we're just playing with 2 dimensions. That's it for now. Get it downloaded, get it installed, start to play. If you don't have a Mac at home, we have a MacBook Pro set up in the Fab Lab in Friday Annex with a license of Millumin running on it, connected to a projector. So you're more than welcome to come in and use that space as well. Let me know if you have any questions, and good luck. Thanks.